Niantro, Prof. Niantro. All right. Welcome back, everyone, to our first Latin American e-workshop in Asia 2022. A quick moment of housekeeping. For those who are using Microsoft Teams, please ensure that your microphones are turned off to ensure that the flow of the program will not be disrupted. When the event is on, please do type in the chat box and let us know if you are not able to hear or see anything. I would like to wish a very good morning, selamat pagi, and buenos dias to all our guests. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Niantro Saavedra Rivano from the University of Tsukuba, Japan, to deliver his speech on the paradox of Ostrogorsky and the constitutional dilemma of Chile. Professor Niantro, please welcome. Prof. Niantro Saavedra. Saavedra not in. Anna, is it Anna? Welcome again. We have a little bit problem to connect with Professor Niantro Saavedra. So I would like to invite the second presenter, which is Professor Evangelos Kotranas. Dr. Evangelos?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Evangelos. Are you there? You hear me, yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
All right, thank you very much. So, Professor Evangelos will present on Russo-Ukrainian war, the rise of BRICS. Dr. Evangelos, please welcome to deliver your speech. Thank you.
Can you see, the full picture, or it is in small size?
Yeah, I can see.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Good evening from Morgantown, West Virginia, United States, and the West Virginia University. I present today a topic that I presented again in Malaysia. And I don't know if I will be glad to present this topic because it seems this issue will bother us for the coming years. This is the Ukrainian war, the rise of BRIC. And we start with what happened, at the beginning of the year. Invasion Russian Federation to Ukraine. And we see here first graph, those countries who are afraid that probably will have conflict issues with Russia in the future. All of those are either neighbor countries or countries that there might be a military conflict. And as we see that one is Poland, which is next to Ukraine. And then we have like UK, France, United States, another, this as well Canada. And this is the belief people that something will happen in the future. This is the high line between and Russia nations. I just did from January 26, 1918 as a point of reference for Ukraine, which Ukraine declared independence from the Russian Empire at that time. Just to clarify, because some Ukraine friends make some objection to mention that Ukraine, like the European countries, exists in the beginning of time. But right now, to show the path of Ukraine's independent state. And we have this, the beginning of the 20th century. And we have all these events that take place in order to come to February 28th, to where Russian army was next to Ukraine. There's ready to attack. Now, I have some graphs that depict what happened the first month of invasion. And as we see, we have based on March 8th, number of civilian casualties war today. How many killed, how many injured? Just as a reference. Here there is a comparative graph about what happened from 2014 till which means that this conflict is an ongoing conflict. It's not something happened out of the blue at the beginning of the year. Now we have the total sanctions imposed from main countries like Australia, Canada, European Union, Japan, Switzerland, UK, and the United States to Russia, to individuals and also companies. The market price of Russian companies on the exchange naturally went down after this event, because we know what would be the economic implications, financial implications for mainly Russian companies. And then the national partners, business inside Russia. This is the market price of key Russian company stock exchange, as we've been making, known companies. Of course, for us, most of are Lukoil, but there are also companies that are so famous in the global landscape. All of them experiences significant loss. This is a gross domestic product, Western side, and the tech sector. You have to take into consideration all of these estimates are based on the assumption that the Russian economy is not independent Otherwise, we know now these estimates are not reality right now. Of course, sanctions we go back to literature. Sanctions is a powerful tool in order the country that use this kind of offensive strategy to the neighbor countries somehow to stop or come up to an agreement. But this, of course, was successful with states like Cuba, Venezuela, Libya, or Iraq. But in case of Iran or in case of Russia, it doesn't exactly work because they have natural resources and they have semi, but especially Russia, they have also partners that they can divert their trade easily from Europe or the United States. This is the output of basic growth that date of trade restriction, again based on the assumption that Russian economy will be affected solely by those sanctions. But of course, Russia is the one that heard it. And this graph shows, these countries are opposed to Russia, those who are aligned to Russia, and those who are somehow neutral. But here in this graph, you see friends and enemies for those who just wait to see where to go. Of course, in the enemies here, but we can see now India is an enemy more because it's part of BRICS, so we cannot be enemies with Russia. Now, these are the conditions for ending the war. Ukraine doesn't NATO and maintains position of neutrality. Crimea is recognized territory of Russia. The independence of the people of the Republic of Donetsk and Lugansk. These are two separatist semi-autonomous territories in Ukraine, where the majority of the population are Russian. Ukraine militarize any people that will be constituted threat to Russia. Ukraine goes to the process of Nazification. I don't know exactly what they're used for. Russians for this. Probably it has to do with politics and the Russian government. And also to become the official language of Ukraine, and any laws or states it use, are all of these, most of the cases of issue has to do with the local communication of the Russian population. We know that when we get countries, multicultural countries, the minorities usually support the country of origin, and of course they want equal treatment. But now we have to see why Russia behave the way they behave. This is the only way to understand logic, Russians, why they decide to, countries that they are part of Soviet Union. Let's say they have their differences, but we see that why this happens. And this is a very nice graph of policy action of Kremlin. It shows the time of the collapse of Soviet Union until now. And one wants to see how Russia see where. And as you see, I said three main events, which probably are the main point reference of Russian politics, because what's going on now has been planned for years. Nothing happens random. And as we know that the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, and all of these years they managed to stand in their own feet. As we see in 2000, Russian recent policymakers realized that we must fight in order to succeed. This kind of argument is based the whole invasion and this hostility remains. And as we see, the time passes all the main events. We go back to 2006, where Russians were in NATO. Why this is a point of reference? Because Russia gained its economic independence, which means now he can convert and can reshape policy, global and local policy in terms of economy, but also in terms of politics, and place itself under different perspective. And now, as time passes, and we see a diversion of how Russians behave in terms of U.S. policies and EU policies toward Russia. And we come back to 2016, when Russia mentioned that the West is in decline. This is something that Russia predicted. This is something that is going to happen. And this is a main point of reference, because this is the moment that Russians decide to take action and to what they're doing right now. There are certain reasons behind this attack. One of them is expansion of NATO. Russia feels threatened by NATO because NATO wants to
Evangelos, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Evangelos, I'm sorry to interrupt. The sound is not clear. We cannot hear you clearly. I'm so sorry.
Then again?
Thank you. We cannot listen to you. It's not very clear. The microphone has any problem on your side, because we cannot hear you clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, better now. Thank you.
Okay. I have to be more close. So, as I mentioned, there are certain reasons behind Russian invasion. The first one, which is very obvious, and this was mentioned several times by Russians, is the expansion of NATO to ex-Soviet states. For Russia, it's considered like a casus belli, it's act of war. Why? I have this conversation with Ukrainian colleagues and say why they are afraid, ex-Soviet states where the U.S. border is only 6 miles, and we're thinking about Alaska from Russia. And we told her there is a certain, difference. Russians are afraid about Moscow. If those missiles, let's say, attack from those states, they will attack probably in 10, 15 minutes. Where from Alaska, it will take 3 hours. What they care is about Moscow, capital. And besides, from that side, Russians are prepared that probably they will have conflict with Americans in the future. And that's why Urals Mountains, which is a natural limit, they can protect Moscow or the European part of Russia. This is a very interesting part. I have the suspicions, but it seems that I'm not the only one. And this is a graph that I took from a New York Times. This graph shows Russia is afraid that sooner or later China won't expand, and China on Siberia. And this graph shows what is going to happen in case that China take over Siberia, it will go up to the mountains. This is the main threat from Russia. And they believe that one day is going to happen. That's why they prepared for this moment. Right now, they show to China that they're still a superpower and they can fight with Russians and Europeans, with Americans and Europeans, same level. The third reason is the natural resources of the Arctic Circle. As you see in this, Russia monopolizes, in terms of land, the area of Arctic Circle, Arctic Ocean. And the reasons behind of this exploration are economic, the shipping lanes, because the ice is melting. So new trade paths that will save a lot of energy and in terms of distance for the trade, resources, but also for political and military reasons. So right now, there are 8 Arctic states: Canada, Denmark, through Greenland, Finland, Iceland, Norway, of course Russia, Sweden, and USA. As you see, now it makes sense why Russia use an excuse that Finland, Sweden, and perhaps Norway to join NATO, because they have the same problem with ex-Soviet states, but also this is the reason they have a reason to take over their area that belongs to the Arctic Circle. Now, here we have the recent activities in Arctic Circle, and are monopolized right now only from Russians and Chinese. And of course, see all the other parties are. And as we see in the last slide, that they have concern about the sovereignty in the Arctic, but they can foresee what's going to happen in the future. This is a quote from Christian Hagen. There is competition over resources. The competition, however, is not just to win, but to define the rules, the players, and the extent of the playing field. This sentence explains everything. What is going on and what's going to happen in the future, it has to do with natural resources. And there is a problem, because we have scarcity. We now move into the area of scarcity. So don't be surprised if we have similar conflicts around the future. Now, these graphs depicts all the levers that can lead to rest of the conflicts based on natural resources. As we see that there is an escalation that can start, from an over-civilized organized system. Why? Because the first, let's say, signs that shows that there might be a problem socioeconomic depict automatically domestic and global, the national economy, so trade. And this also, all these levels and de-escalate, create even community tensions. Now, need to see based on natural how is classified our world based on say water. As you see, that very few areas on the planet they have enough resources for the population, and we have to worry about Europe, not part of Africa, but also China and India. Even though the Arab world experienced serious problems now, but probably in the near future. Here, in terms of organic agriculture, the big countries that they are the main producers. And as you see, it's United States, Argentina, Germany, and France probably cover the European, then Ethiopia, and Canada, but again, China, India, and Australia. Here is the agricultural production, which again see how it is, centralized.
Evangelist,
Of course,
I'm sorry to interrupt you again. The sound is not very clear, and we are losing good information from you. Can you fix the microphone? I'm so sorry, because it's so good the topic that we cannot. It's broken. The voice is broken, and we cannot hear you. So sorry. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Again, please.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Okay, I have to be very close to the microphone. Okay, so here we have a better map that shows, areas that are agricultural areas, but not in mass production. Here, this graph shows the natural resources, mineral resources worldwide. And this map is really important because you will realize how BRICS are united and came to power. As you see, we have Brazil and South Africa, which are part of the BRICS. They have significant mineral resources, which are important for production and concentration. And now I update my previous presentation in order to show the importance big countries that participate, the two countries participate in this, but I foresee that the third one might join, and I hope not to join. And this one, first one is Brazil. See all minerals that Brazil possess. And we need to understand how important is Brazil participation in BRICS. And probably may say why. Because BRICS, they came to power for change the world status. This can happen through the population. When you have the majority population, and of course, Brazil is one of the biggest countries in Latin America. And then from minerals, which are important for production. And I'll tell you later on why. Now, here is the South Africa. They possess the same kind of mineral with Brazil. And the third one, which I'm afraid that probably will join the BRICS, is Argentina. Argentina possesses the same minerals like Brazil and South Africa. But the importance of Argentina is the natural gas, the shale natural gas, and shale oil, which now is not economically feasible to extract, but probably in the near future. And they have reserves that can support globally global demand probably the next 200 years. So you can imagine if Argentina joined BRICS, probably this will be the end of North America and Europe. That's why Brazil has a situation whether to stay in the BRICS or not, because we're moving to a new era, a deglobalization era, due to the scarcity of natural resources. This map worldwide all those minerals which are important for production. And as you see, the majority of those minerals are located in Asia and particularly China. So not surprisingly, China was the production hub of the planet. And of course, shows again the importance of Brazil and South Africa. Those are the countries: Brasilia, South Africa, Russia, China, and also land. And economic status, population. Now, those are reserves. Why are reported? Because Russia, in order to decide to invade, the country needs to have a backup plan. As you see, the main reserve, gold reserves, are United States, Germany, but in the 5th place is Russia. However, Russia gold reserves are diversified, and the main partner is China, which possesses 13.8%. This is really important because we know that the other countries which are considered enemies or hostile towards Russia, they will allow Russia to withdraw their gold reserves in order to support this war. So that's why China right now is the main determinant that will decide whether this war will be or not. Of course, this was based on the assumption that the Russian economy would actually be, which now after 8 months of the event, see that the Russian economy has already, grown. And I don't know how relevant is this information anymore. And here we see the two orders: the New World Order, which support the United States and Europe, and of course they support globalization and a borderless war. The global economy support dominated by US dollar and euro, as we right now. Then of course move to a digital economy, where in the other side we have BRICS, and they suggest an alternative world order. As we see that they support the regionalism and they become the new hegemonic state planet, but they want to support a new economic system. And of course, their economy will not be a digital economy, but will be based on natural resources and denominated by yuan, Chinese yuan, and Russian ruble. Our paper introduced trade suffocation. It's a new term come up with Professor Rada. What does it mean, trade suffocation? When a country gets a full or a partial trade investment restriction to train and invest in the rest of the world using the main river water. So it can be trades, can cause trade suffocation through invasion of sources, which automatically or destabilize any trade or economic activity. Then we have abuse of power, the civil crisis of national and neighborhood. And we have, of course, human and material damage. Exactly what happened right now in Ukraine. Of course, trade suffocation has a clear impact, in economic performance of the country. It's what happened to Ukraine economy. So we try with this new indicator to materialize, conceptualize this military impact economy, and not only now, but also future effect. Also, the trade suffocation cause investment growth. Investment growth, again, it's a new trend, and is based on the another new term of Estrada, economic growth, which corresponds to the exports and FDI losses the economy experiences due to a military conflict. Of course, this an indicator of the distraction of investments in the local economy. And of course, it's very difficult to regain because what everybody knows, it's really hard to build something, but to destroy, you can, will take decades to build it again. And of course, investment growth as well, the its application is based on omnia mobilis assumption. Omnia mobilis assumption, it means that everything is moving. It's contrary to ceteris paribus, that all variables are stable, and we move only one variable, say how it behaves in compared to the other economic variables. So this is trade suffocation, and the indicator shows that when it's positive, country experience lowest damage from the rest of. When the index is zero, the country sits in equilibrium. So when it's negative, it is highly common. And Harvard research findings are consistent with the findings of a paper we wrote with Professor Estrada a year ago about the United States and its economic war. And here we can see the trade relations of the United States with Russia. As you see, there is a trade dependency, mainly of the European Union with Russia. And that's why we see now that European Union suffered its own sacrifice, because the European Union didn't take into consideration that Russia monopolized the natural gas and oil, and that's why European sanctions doesn't have any effect on the Russian economy. As I mentioned, the natural gas, this is a matter that the pipeline that leaves from Russia course, all over Europe. And as you see, unfortunately, the three main economies of the European Union, Italy, France, and Germany, are seriously affected because they use natural gas as a natural resource. They replace electricity for industrial production. And as we see now, that when you depend on a monopoly, this can become and has serious effect in your economy. Now, the European Union Energy Union, as you see, is based on natural gas, nuclear power, coal, steel, certain countries like Belgium, but also Greece, we use hydroelectric and other renewables that are technology. And it will take time not to replace the current ones. This is the trade between the top countries, Russia, and top exos countries in Ukraine. And how, based on this graph, we can see how also the Ukrainian economy is affected. And of course, we see now the price will push up prices because, as we see, Ukraine is one of the main wheat suppliers of the world, along with Russia. And putting sanctions on Russia, of course, Ukraine right now they cannot export their reserves. This creates a great imbalance in financial market in regards to wheat prices that ignite other changes the product itself, also the complementary components that are based on wheat. This is a 3D dimension graph of the three trade suffocation that shows the investment war from war fund. And it is based on axis where vertical axis is the year. So we have 5 dimensions that the fifth one is in time. And of course, as we see also, this is for Russia and EU. First one is the base one. And here we have the effect on the Russian. And based on findings, the Russia economy affected more compared to European economy. Again, based on that the Russian economy is isolated, will not use alternative methods, trade, as they do now with China and India. And these are the scenarios for economic outbreak crisis. And as we see from severe order and life, up to now, I think we are moving to a moderate scenario. We see the disruption of oil and gas prices. Of course, we see some inflation terms, other products, complementary products, but still are not so obvious because the markets, they believe that we come up to agreement. But as the time passed by, things will be reversed, especially by the end of the year. And these are the 3 possible scenarios. If Russia loses, we have NATO intervention, and of course we probably have World War III. a win-win solution. We Russians, withdraw the troops from Ukraine. They want the ex-Soviet states to enter NATO, Ukraine's political independence, and the rest of the issue has to be solved between Ukraine and Russia. If Russia prevails, then we will have a downgrade of the United States and Europe, geopolitical state. Yuan and will gain power against US dollar, euro. Exports will switch to ruble. It's a matter of time. Right now, we have changed production, and the gold price is afraid that the crude oil will change the revenues and switch US dollar or ruble, and probably we have military into Taiwan and Japan and Philippines, the invasion of China. Then South Korea by North Korea, Israel by the Arab states, and Greece by. Because things have changed the last couple of months, I believe there's a scenario, it's a fourth one, which this war will not end easily because there's no way NATO to accept their defeat and to withdraw European nations become NATO members. What's going to happen is to Russia to create Ukraine as a buffer zone. It will be the new Iron Curtain, like one we had the last century is in Germany, East and West Germany. And of course, they will have the prevail of Greeks, as we need to know that we will move from demand side economy to supply side. And from the Trump paper that we wrote with Professor Stratton, we found out that economic change in China to become an independent economy will reverse the loss of trade, which means that the middle class of China, which by the end of 2022 will be 700 million people, will be the middle class population of Europe and North America together. And the China is not planning to increase the production capacity. It means that they will keep the production from themselves. And if they want to increase kind of production, whatever is left, they will send it, to Europe, United States. This means that the prices will go up 30% in China and probably 50% in Europe and United States in all products that came in China. This is probably going to happen by 2027 when the middle class in China will reach 1.2 billion people. So we will move to a supply side economy where the producers will determine the production. As you realize that we will have a shift of wealth from west to east, and this will create other conflicts, deglobalization, regionalism, which means that probably the countries geographically will make coalitions, feeling that every continent will have to take care of themselves and find a way how to treat their own natural resources, meaning the Africa for Africans, Asia for Asians, America for Americans, and Europe for Europeans, and so on. Unfortunately, hopefully this is the future. And that's it. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Evangelos Kotronas, for your insightful speech. And for those who have questions, we will open the Q&A session right after the second presentation. And now I would like to invite again Professor Nyantru Saavedra Drivanu from the University of Tsukuba, Japan, to deliver his speech on the paradox of Ostrogorsky and the constitutional dilemma of Chile. Professor Nyantru, please welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you once again. And I hope my audio will go through better than that of Professor Evangelos, which it was hard to follow, really. Let me share my screen.
Okay, yes, I can see.
Are you seeing my screen? Yes?
Yes, Professor, I can
Excellent.
see.
Thank you very much. Well, as probably all of you know, we had the plebiscite in Chile just 10 days ago. And I am going to talk about an interpretation of the results of that plebiscite, and also to talk some lessons that can be learned from that interpretation, which could be applied from what comes next, because this is not finished. So first of all, some background. Starting from, well, of course, the background could go much before that, but let's start from 2019, when in October, there was an awakening of popular unrest in Chile. There were many demonstrations, public demonstrations. Eventually, they became quite violent. And that was provoked by a sense that things were not really right, that the social demands from the population had not been met by several governments after the end of the Pinochet era. So eventually, the president at that time, President Sebastián Piñera, in order to stop this situation, he agreed to call for a national plebiscite, not the one I am talking about now, but another one, which was in October of 2020. It was scheduled originally to take place earlier, but because of the pandemics, it was postponed until October. Now, what was in play in that plebiscite was a change of a constitution. Chile had been working under the same constitution that the Pinochet dictatorship had established in 1980. Of course, the Pinochet government finished in the early 90s. So many years later, still, of course, that constitution had been amended a number of times, but most people felt that it was time already for a total change of it. So the plebiscite decided by a large majority that a new constitution was needed. And also, the second decision was that a constitutional convention should be elected to draft it. So that constitutional convention was elected in May of 2021. It was very interesting and rather innovative rules were established for it. One thing was that the same number of seats would be reserved for female and male constituents. So there was gender parity. Representation was allowed for independent candidates. That means candidates who not come from any of the established parties. It was relatively easy for somebody to stand for a seat at this constitutional convention without having ever been member of a political party. Also, there were reserved places for the aboriginal peoples, indigenous peoples. The vote was voluntary, and actually a little over 40% of registered voters did vote. We are going to see in a while why this was important. So the Constitutional Convention convened, and they worked for about a year. The constitutional text was finally agreed in July of this year. And it was a very ambitious text. There were many controversial issues that were agreed in this text. Among them, Chile was defined as a plurinational state. So that means that it was made very explicit that the indigenous people, other ethnic groups would have an equal voice in the government of the country. The right to abortion was established, which for Chile was a huge change. Regarding the environment, the text was also very progressive. It was acknowledged that nature has rights. So nature was seen as an entity holder of rights. The Senate, which is in the Chilean traditional political structure, is a powerful upper chamber, was eliminated, and a new Chamber of the Regions was created. So all of these were, of course, parts of the proposed constitutional text. According to the design of this process, that text was going to be submitted to another plebiscite. So this is the one that took place on September 4th, so 10 days, exactly 10 days ago. Now, the big difference between this vote and the previous two votes was that the vote for the plebiscite was obligatory. So that, as a result of that, 85% of registered voters did vote, more than twice those voting for the Constitutional Convention. There was a campaign. Of course, eventually, the proposed text was rejected by 62 to 38%. The political parties, established political parties, they aligned in this vote following more or less the same lines that led to the election of President Boric in December of 2021. However, they failed to reproduce that result. Parties of the left, center-left, they were in favor of approving the text. Parties on the right and center-right, which had lost the election, they actually were able to win this time, and they rejected the constitutional text proposed by the convention. So, where do we stand now? Well, first of all, this is, of course, a huge embarrassment for the Boric administration, which had explicitly supported an accept vote. So that is one point. The second point is that we are still under the mandate of the original vote, which took place in October 2020, where voters decided to change the constitution and to call a constitutional convention. So, in principle, one would expect, and that was the position taken by President Boric and the parties in the left and center left, to start all over again, to elect a new constitutional convention that would produce another proposal of the constitution and to call a final plebiscite to either accept or reject it. However, the opposing side, actually, yes, it's opposing. In this case, it is, yeah, actually, that side which lost in October 2020, but which basically won now, is maneuvering to keep the old constitution, accepting, of course, that it would be subject to some amendments. Those people would even accept that the constitution is changed, but however, the changes are done by the current parliament, so that no new constitutional convention would be elected. So that means the situation that we have now is that we have a rather fierce debate among conflicting views on how to proceed. And that debate is interfering with the actions that the new administration, which is relatively new, yes, started in March, faces, well, many other challenges. There are many other urgent issues in addition to the constitutional renewal process. So it is, I would not say political crisis, but it is not a nice situation. Now, how can we explain this mess? Because that is the term that one should apply. But part of the explanation is the inconsistency that already was observed between the different voting regimes for the various votes taken. In the case of the first referendum of plebiscite, as well as for the election of the constituents, the constitutional convention, the vote was voluntary. So you didn't have to vote, you didn't want. Now, for the plebiscite that was going to decide whether the proposal would be accepted or not, the vote was mandatory. So that is a rather odd situation. We could, let's say, if the final vote, the one that was taken in September 4th, had also been voluntary, for sure, the number of people voted would have been smaller. However, it is very likely that the proposal would still have been rejected because there was a reaction among the population at large that that proposed text was not what most people wanted. However, it's more interesting to ask if all votes had been mandatory, especially the election for the Constitutional Convention, if that had been mandatory. Well, certainly we would have had a different composition of the convention. And of course, a different constitutional proposal. And perhaps that might have been approved by the electorate. So we can see, just by this speculative thinking, that this was a big problem, having this inconsistency between different voting regimes for these votes taken. Now, in addition to that, perhaps most important, the constitutional plebiscite presented voters with a very simple question, approve or reject, in relation to a very complex set of different issues. We saw before, let me go back here, we had some of these issues, like Chile as a plurinational state, the right to abortion, nature as a rights holder, elimination of the upper chamber, and creation of the Chamber of Regions. So these are very complex questions, and they are different. So they were all put together, and the voters had to say approve or reject to the. So that is goes into the direction of explaining what happened. And here is where enters this Russian political scientist who I think he died about a century ago. So his work is more than a century old. He was actually born in what is today Byelorussia, but at the time, of course, he was Russian, Ostrogorsky. And he wrote, of course, several things in political science and political sociology. But one of the insights that he really left us is this fact that when voters are presented with a set of issues, so a set more than one issue, several issues, and required to give a simple answer to that set, yes or no, it may happen that the set is rejected, despite the fact that each one of the issues, or perhaps most of them, would be approved by a majority of the voters. So the point is that we will have a majority for each one of the issues, say, but these majorities will be different, will comprise a different part of the population. So as those who like one of the issues dislike the other issues sufficiently so as to reject the whole, the result is that the set is rejected. So, as we saw, the complexity of the issues included in the constitutional text makes really very plausible that the Ostrogorsky paradox applies to this situation. I acknowledge, I'm glad to acknowledge that this hypothesis is speculative, and of course it would need to be validated by surveys taken among voters in the plebiscite. It's something that could be done, of course, but it needs some structure to do that. So, what can we learn from this? Because as I said before, the mandate for a new constitution stands still there. There were about 6 million people who voted for it in 2020. So the first rather obvious lesson is that mandatory vote should be applied to the election of a new constitutional convention. In that way, it would make sure that the convention is more representative of the population at large. And the second lesson, which derives from the discussion of the Ostrogorsky paradox, is that those new elected constituents, they must strive to practice politics as the art of the possible, so as to reach a new draft constitution which, despite its complexity, reflects the wishes of the majority and stands a better chance of being ratified by popular vote. And that is what I wanted to say today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Niantru Sawitra. Now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Mario Arturo to moderate the Q&A session. Dr. Mario, please welcome.
Good morning to all of you. Thanks for coming to this platform. It's the first electronic workshop of Latin America and Asia. I have two great speakers. My former professor, Niantru Saavedra, from Sukup University, that I feel proud to be next to him in this platform, presenting his nice topic. And we have Dr. Evangelos Aprestigios, economist and mathematician. We open questions to the public, and please, you can ask anytime, any question, comment or critique. This platform is very democratic. Please, if you don't have any, I can give two questions. Any question, you can open your microphone, identify yourself. Please. Okay, if I cannot find any question, I have two questions. First for Professor Niantru Saavedra. Professor Niantru Saavedra, I enjoy your presentation. It's a fantastic presentation. And I have a big question. Suppose the vote for the Constitution, and the party won the election last time, correct? Suppose large part of the population support this political party. Why the constitution not have the same support? I'm sorry to tell you because it's a paradox. It's exactly what you said. They won the elections with majority, suppose, but the constitution fell in the moment to decide the change of the constitution. My question to you is two questions. How is going to change the original constitution to this new constitution? And second one, how you can explain me that these elections win, but the constitution lost his final target? Thank you so much, Prof. And later I go with Dr. Evangelos. Please, Professor Saavedra.
Thank you, Mario. It's also nice to be here in the same, sharing the same environment, the same platform. Well, it is true, yes, that as we know, the election for president took place at the end of last year. The first, there were two rounds. First round in November, where actually Boric came in second, and then the second round in December, when the forces of left and center left really came together, and by not so small but not very large margin either, Gabriel Boric won and was elected. But it was plurality, not a real majority. So the victory was not really like a sweeping victory that took him to power. It is important to keep in mind that Boric represents the new left, not the conventional left. In the same way that in several countries in Europe, we are seeing the emergence of a new right, and actually also here in Latin America, we are seeing that as well. So in Chile, it happened that the new left was able to go to the second round. And on the other side, it was also the new right. It was not the conventional right. So it was very special in the sense that the two candidates did not represent any of the well-established political parties of the last 30 years. But then I think what explains why the constitutional proposal didn't make it, so was not accepted, is the fact that few people went to vote for the members of the Constitutional Convention, and also that many independent candidates were able to be elected. So the composition of the convention, they were members of the established parties, left, new left, right, new right, but also a large number of constituents who did not belong to any of that, who had their own ideas and who were very stubborn about them. The fact that they did not have experience in politics, that means that they were not open to compromise. And they were able, eventually, to draft a constitution that was what they wanted, very, very ambitious, very progressive, but one for which Chile was not ready. So that explains why, despite the fact that the traditional parties of left and new left, they campaigned for the approval of the constitution, many people had doubts about it. And that is where the Ostrogorski paradox worked, because many people liked some of the features of the text, but they didn't like others. So eventually they preferred to reject. And the fact is that there was, after the vote, there was a kind of general relief among the population that the constitution had been rejected. So it's not clear whether an approval would have been the best for Chile. And again, that is due to the fact that the Constitutional Convention was not properly selected. So that goes towards the first lesson that I indicated, that if a new constitutional convention is to be elected, the vote has to be mandatory. No sound coming from you. You need your microphone is muted.
The microphone.
We have questions, one from Chile and one from one diplomat in Malaysia, but he don't want to identify himself. I'm so sorry. The first one, he asked the diplomat, what do you think about this new trend of left parties? They are winning in South America, in Central America. What is your opinion? Why the left parties, they are getting so stronger day to day? Can be by COVID-19 reasons, poverty or inequality, unemployment. Can you give to us your point of view on South American level? Because in Colombia we have left party winner, and we have in Chile, and then the diplomat don't want to identify himself, and he asked me, what do you think about it?
Certainly. Thank you for the question. Well, of course, all situations are different. So we cannot say that President Boric follows the same lines as President Petro in Colombia, or that very likely new administration of President Lula will be in Brazil starting from next year. They are all different situations, but one thing is common, which is the fact that until recently, all of these countries were governed by parties of the right, Chile, Colombia, Brazil, and they simply did not satisfy the social needs of the population. So we can say it is a classical situation of the pendulum going back. Now it goes back in different situations, in different ways. So in the case of Chile, it is interesting that it was not any of the parties of the conventional or the traditional left who won the election. It was a new left which emerged. And in Colombia also, in Colombia actually it's the first time ever, I think, that the party from the left win a presidential election. So yeah, there are some common features, but differences, of course.
The another question is about a professor from Universidad Católica de Chile, Professor Henry, visiting professor. He asking you, what is the future of the Constitution of Chile and the relationship the Constitution of Chile with economic growth? Thank you.
Well, Jorge Hayden,
yes.
Nice to talk to you even through this means, an old friend of mine. Well, the relation between, there is of course a relation. It's hard to pinpoint, but for sure, it is the most important set of rules in any country, the Constitution. Well, whether it is written or not, as we know, in the United Kingdom there is no written formal constitution. It is an interesting exception, but it is very important for economic growth because it will provide.
I think some. Okay. Thank you so much, Professor.
Yeah, there is some instability. We're back. There is a relationship, but it needs to be worked out for sure. It is important for economic growth. People need to know which are the rules governing their activities.
Thank you so much. Now for Dr. Evangelos, we have two questions. The first one, they said, what is the role of Brazil in BRICS and the possible cooperation between China and Russia and this kind of trade war? Actually, indirectly, we are talking. What is the role of Brazil in this critical moment of BRICS? Thank you.
Okay. Brazil was chosen for three reasons. I found out, I think, three reasons. The first reason is population. China and Russia, they want majority of population of the planet in order to set up a new setting. And they are right. Look, what is West? Europe, North America, and Oceania. 25% of the population, and they wanted to rule the other 75%. It is not fair. It was matter of time. The continent of Africa or Asia or the Arab states to say, okay, enough is enough. Okay, and they found a way that we have the natural resources and we need to set up new rules. The second reason for Brazil is the minerals resources. Why? Because as you see that minerals are important for production. And probably say, yeah, but why? It's very simple. China, it's changing its economic model, but at the same time, Europe and United States, they are planning to bring jobs back home. What President Trump trying to do was right, either with backshoring or nearshoring. This is the new terms in the national trade. Backshoring is to bring the jobs back in the country of origin, or nearshoring to bring in areas near to the country. That's why you see that the Chinese bought or invested in North Africa, because they foresaw that they're going to lose, trade. We know that the cost of production in China went up, and many companies they move, to Southeast Asia and South Asia, like Vietnam. So they foresaw that the production probably will move for Europe to North Africa, because what it will change? It will change also the transportation, because transportation costs is high, are monopolized, by Chinese. And if the production goes back, to America continent, it will go where? Central America and Latin America. But to do so, you need natural resources. If you bring to your own club, Brazil, United States will not have the natural resources to support this move. The same applies with Argentina. Argentina has to do with food. It has to do with other kinds of resources. And as I mentioned in the future, that probably 30 years from now, we will be able to exploit, the sales of natural gas and sales of oil, which is now to the deep sea. And Argentina will be important probably 20 years from now, when technology will be advanced. That's why I want to say to Brazil that Brazil has to reconsider, as all Latin Americans, that, look, the game has changed. You have to see and take care of your continent. I know you have some difficulties in the past with the United States, but this will change. And you have to support the United States, because if the United States is going down, all of you will go down. United States will see you as equal, and will try to help you with their know-how in order to use with the most sophisticated way your natural resources, in order this to keep in the long run. If Brazil keep with BRICS, or those countries that we are with BRICS, a new economic system, as we mentioned, in the Trump paper, it will be based on middle class of China, but this has changed. We don't need to wait for middle class Chinese to support the system, because they have India. The party is over. They have the population to support the new economic system. What they need now is natural resources. Why? Because the strength of Asia is also the weakness. Large population, something that Russia don't have. Russians, do you know why the sanctions cannot affect Russia? The population in Russia is 171 million people, and the land of Russia is 1.8 times larger than the United States and only 0.8 times larger than China. And they have all the natural resources to support the people. They don't care whether they have sanctions or not, because they have enough natural resources, food and oil and gas and everything. And of course, in international trade, we know from the theory that benefits everybody. Yeah, but under these circumstances, they can survive. Like also the United States can survive. If United States, which probably now is going to move to a new isolation period because they have to come up with a new plan. Europe and the United States have come up with a new plan. Look, a world war, a new world war is not win-win situation. It's a lose-lose situation. So what I foresee is a new Iron Curtain, a new buffer zone like Ukraine. Things will remain as is. Will be in a new cold era, and probably we have, you know, something totally different, but not the world that we used to live right now.
We have a second question from the Argentinian Trade Commission, directly from Buenos Aires. They ask you, is possible Argentina join BRICS? And what are the conditions for them?
Look, I told you that I foresee that the Argentinians, they want to join BRICS because, you know, they see potential, but they cannot see the trap. The trap is that they will use their natural resources for Asians. Now, the game has changed. You have to see your own continent. That's why also Brazil has to reconsider the position in BRICS.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
Look, they will be, if Argentina join BRICS, the game is, it's a game-changing strategy. United States and Europe will not be able to recover. Argentina plays an important role. We know for sure that Australia will not join. It will be, you know, with West. But Argentinians' position is really crucial now. Of course, if they see, you know, in the short run, they can gain strong benefits with BRICS, and they can gain, but in the short run, not in the long run.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. We have the last question to Professor Neantro Saavedra. This is from National University of Singapore, Professor Lee. He asked, how is about why the democratic system in Latin America is so fragile and cannot generate this stronger economic growth? It's very hard question, Prof, but they asked me because, you know, Singapore is a city-state. And they say, you have natural resources, you have people, you have everything. But democracy is not working. Like, because you know how Singapore is working in Southeast Asian political systems. It is the last question, Prof. Thank you so much.
Let me see if I understood well. The question is how, despite having a fragile political system,
why the democracies in Latin America is not able to generate economic growth or sustainability in the long to generate developed countries. In Singapore, we have this process of development, but no exists democracy.
I understand.
That's what I mean.
I understood the question. Well, this is a question that would need a longer lecture than the one I gave here to start answering it. It's a question, there have been many studies comparing Latin America and East Asia. Singapore, of course, is, as Mario has just said, is an excellent example of a state that has, I consider Singapore a democracy, but it is rather an authoritarian democracy. And while it has an impressive, very impressive growth, and we don't see that in Latin America. We see democracies that are not that perfect either, because in the case of Chile, we had a long period of dictatorship from 1973, well, almost like 18 years, yes, dictatorship. But from then on, yes, in the last 30 years, Chile has had a very, I would say, healthy democracy with several political parties, alternance of government, and economic growth in Chile has not been bad, yes, compared to other Latin American countries. It's rather robust. However, compared with countries in East Asia, it has been weak. And the explanation for that weakness in Chile, as well as other Latin American countries, has a variety of explanations. One of them is inequality. Inequality is very high in all Latin American countries. Chile is no exception. Social democratic governments have improved the situation a bit, but not too much. This is actually what led to these protests, street protests in 2019. It's because people were not satisfied. And the situation is same in Brazil, even worse in Colombia, everywhere. So that is one explanation, part of the explanation. Another part of the explanation is deficiency in human capital. It's related to the first one, of course, because the less favored parts of the population, they do not receive proper education. So the overall quality of human quality is low, productivity is low, and if you don't have productivity, you don't have growth. So I would say that these two are probably the most important factors that will answer the question from Singapore.
Thank you. Well, if you have any question from the public, the another says
Mario.
Yes.
Professor Mario, I want to mention something.
Yes, please.
Argentinians have to realize that right now they have a big bargaining chip in their hands. Can you hear me? Hello? Professor Mario?
Yes, I'm here. Okay. I can hear you.
A bargaining chip Argentinians in their hands. Why? Because Brazil has already joined BRICS. Argentinians now can change their fate, saying to the United States or Europe, I'm planning to join BRICS. What do you have to offer? Meaning that they can get rid of their debts and also to get a better deal. Why? And I believe in the future, Brazil will follow. Why? Because Brazil and Argentina have natural resources. They don't need what China and Russia have to offer. What they need is technology. And technology now is with Europe and United States. So that's why the benefit in the long run for Argentina and Brazil and all Latin America is to get technology and at the same time to move production in Latin America, to Latin America. This will be game changing. I don't think that the production for Europe will go to Africa because Africa, as I mentioned, Chinese is already there because they want to control, the trade destinations.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's something that Argentinians have to take into consideration and also Brazilians to see, in the long run, not now. Now it is the obvious.
Okay. Okay. We conclude. I think not have any more questions. We conclude now this third seminar and e-workshop of Latin America and Asia. We have a very successful, and later we're going to put this on Facebook and YouTube. And later, many views are coming. Believe me, usually we have so many. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Professor Saavedra. You give me a nice presentation for the center. And also, Professor Evangelos, you did a great presentation. And really, we learned a lot.
For the microphone, I don't know what's going on because we have the same problem the previous time. I don't know what, probably the internet connection. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, all of you. We expect to see you soon, physically in Malaysia next year. And you come here to visit us and stay for a while and can learn your knowledge with us next year. This is the idea of this platform. First we do virtually and later maybe we do physically to come to Malaysia if everything is moving according to our projects and plans. Thank you so much, both of you. I think it's quite late for you, and Professor Neantro, I think you sacrifice your sleep. Thank you so much, Prof. And God bless you, and happy to see you, and also to you, Evangelos. Then we conclude the presentation now, and that's all. Thank you so much. we
Thank you.
conclude this presentation. Great presentation. Later we send the link of YouTube and Facebook for your information. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Mario Arturo. Thank you, Dr. Mario Arturo,
Thank you too.
Yeah, head of Center of Latin American Studies, University Malaya, and also our presenter, Dr. Evangelos Kotronas, and also Professor Niantro Saavedra, and all the participants. So on behalf of the Faculty of Languages and Linguistics, and also the organizing committee, we hope that you have enjoyed this time, and thank you again. See you next week on the 21st of September 2022. Thank you very much.